What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm JB, this is Fast in the Corners, and today we're doing something I'm personally quite excited about. Today we are going to try and fit a manual boost controller to a diesel engine, but not just a diesel engine, one with variable geometry turbo or variable vane geometry turbo. Variable geometry turbo, variable vane turbo, variable vane turbo or variable geometry turbo. Now I'm not sure if they're the same thing, if they actually work in different ways, but they both use an actuator to adjust how much boost pressure the turbo makes. And you know, for a turbo, a petrol turbo, you could just fit a manual boost controller and adjust how much boost, you know, the wastegate lets through, purges at, whatever. But you can't do that with a diesel engine because of lack of throttle body and stuff like that I don't quite understand. So this here will actually do the job of the factory solenoid. In this truck, a Mitsubishi L200 or a Mitsubishi Shogun, the ECU controls a solenoid electronically using pulse width modulation to open and close or allow vacuum and not allow vacuum through a hose to the turbo actuator. So it uses vacuum solenoids as standard. They're crap. The ECU can be slow to react to the inputs, and they fail a lot. And then a lot of the Chinese, you know, ones on eBay and that are not worth fitting. Guys complain about fitting them, they work for a week and then they don't again, and then your engine starts over boosting because it can't control the boost pressure at the right time. And I believe how these engines like to work with these variable geometry turbos is that they allow the engine to receive more boost in the lower RPMs, which is good for towing, you know, it's good for torque, it's good for pulling loads. And then what it actually does is reduce the boost pressure in the higher RPMs. You're still getting boost, but not as much as you were getting in those low RPMs. So the goal is with this to keep the setup like that. This will adjust the boost pressure through the rev range, just like the ECU did, but mechanically. So getting down to the nitty gritty on this, it's got 4 ports on it. It has turbo, intake, boost and vacuum. So for this installation we've had to add a couple of vacuum lines, so I'll read off the instructions here for a second. So as per the instructions, turbo goes to the turbo's VNT actuator or VGT actuator in our case, or at least that's how it's referred to in Mitsubishi's manuals. Intake goes to the turbo's intake after the air filter. Now this truck didn't have a port there before, you know, between the air filter and the turbo, so I've added one to the hosing, which I'll show you in a minute. And then it doesn't specify that that's uncommon for a truck, but it talks about one of the other ones here in a minute. The vacuum goes to your vacuum source, which we have from the old solenoids, and the last hose boost, it says it must be sourced from the turbo outlet or intercooler piping. Note that this hose usually does not exist on factory VNT systems, but it is necessary to connect the V2, as this is how it references the actual boost pressure to control the vacuum that moves the VNT vanes. It's best not to tee this hose into a boost gauge hose, as it does bleed some pressure and may affect your boost gauge reading. So I've had to add the intake barb and the boost barb to my existing pipework in the engine bay, so let's go and take a look at that. So I've actually been pretty busy this morning, taking full advantage of a day off, a full day of work, which is great. So I've been in here, we've got some new pipework, just unrelated. I'd ordered some new hoses because I had a hole here in this hose, which was pouring, you know, oil which passes through these turbos. I actually don't think it's the turbo seals that are away on it. I think it's just the positive crankcase ventilation that literally just dumps oil mist right into the turbo there. So first barb I've added is the one that it calls for on the intake so I've just popped a little blank over that just now. That's it there, so it's after the intake but before the turbo, so we'll be going on to that. Our second barb that we've added is for the boost, so this will go to the boost portion of the VNT controller. What's that hair? What's that hair doing there? This is where our boost controller will read the actual boost pressure that it's given the engine. And what you can see here is I've actually planned to completely do, I've removed the factory solenoid out of this altogether, and I've actually removed the throttle body solenoid which is next to it as well, because these don't actually need, these diesel engines don't need a throttle, right? Why would a diesel engine have a throttle or a throttle body? It could be used for cutting air to the engine when you're turning it off. That'll give it a smoother turn off. You know, the engine won't vibrate as much when you turn it off. But as far as I'm aware, the Mitsubishi doesn't actually use it for that purpose. It just uses it for exhaust gas recirculation. I think it closes slightly, which causes a pressure difference in the system, which allows that exhaust gas to be pulled through and recirculated. So as we've seen previously when I've removed this, the throttle plate in this is spring loaded open, so removing the setup will leave it clear to let air through. So here you go, you can see here that's the factory bolt holes for where our this would be, our factory solenoids. So that leaves us with this nice open area here. I should have cleaned this up better, it was full of oil, but well, it's not a clean engine anyway, it's a dirty diesel. So we've got our line here for our vacuum source, which I've got on already while I had this pipework off. We have this line here, which I'll show you better in a second, but it goes onto a hard pipe at the back and actually passes, this sensor's tapped into it, which we'll talk about in a second, but passes right down to here and all the way down to the actuator itself. So I'm utilising that hard line because this sensor, the ECU actually uses it to understand what position it's got the solenoid in, or maybe how much vacuum it's using. I'm not quite sure how it knows where it's at, but it definitely is needed. So I'm going to try and retain that for the moment to see if it avoids you know, engine management lights coming up, etc. Might try running without it. You know, I could just run right off of the solenoid itself here with this line right to the controller. We'll see, we'll try it that way first. I think we've probably done enough talking about it. I don't know if I've said already, you know, just in case anyone out here is wondering what you could do this on. You know, this engine's in quite a lot of things, but mainly the K74 and the Shogun. I forget the engine code, what is it? 4D56, so 4D56 engine. Whatever the application, as long as it's the later one with the variable geometry turbo. Earlier models I think had a TD04 or something in them. They weren't variable. Don't know how they performed in comparison, but anyway, enough talk, let's get it in. Right, it's starting to rain, so let's get on with this quick. I've decided for now that this is going to be where the VNT lives for the moment. D-boost even. GFB D-boost V2, let's call it that. So I'm using a cable tie at the moment. It's pretty secure there actually, to be honest, but I mean, I didn't want to drill a hole and fit it somewhere permanently yet, just in case it doesn't work. So now let's get our lines cut and plumbed in. Right, let's get started. So our easiest one to start with here is a turbo that I put on earlier, which is, oh, that's not even it, this is vacuum. Right, so let's snip the vacuum line. You're going to need some vacuum gauge cutters, otherwise known as tin snips. Take this up to vacuum. I won't spit today, I'll use the proper stuff. These are quite thick barbs actually. In we go. boost. What did that go to again? Turbo and intake. Ah yes, boost will be to our where it wants to take boost pressure sensor readings from. So we're going to take a boost pressure from here through the nipple that I've just added. By the way, here's some B-roll footage of me fitting this little nipples. I like saying nipples here. It was just a little thing that I got off Amazon. Drilled a hole in the hoses with a step hole cutter, and sealed them in nice and good. Boost to boost, boost. Oh, that's all the way in. Just trying to give it a bit of length so it's not coming back on itself, kinking. You know, it might have been easier to put these hoses on before I put it in place, but here we are. So turbo and intake to the left, so turbo will be our VNT or VGT actuator. So I just got to remove that little bit of old hose on that hard line. Where's my screwdriver? Right, remove that old section of hose. There we go, we've got a little spare. Right. Let's get a new bit of hose on that pipe. I've made this really hard to get into. It's a bit better. There we go. One left, and that's to our intake, which is down here after the air filter. While I've got this little blank off, I'm just going to pop that on the throttle actuator. Throttle, that's the throttle. So we don't need that anymore. Or we're going to try and not use it anymore. Whether we need it anymore, we're soon going to find out. What's this for? Intake. Okay, so I'll go on my nice new nipple here. That's that on, and then this runs all the way back. I'm going to try and keep this out of the exhaust. If the cable tie it on there, it'll be nice. Okay, put that black mark. Yeah, bit of lube. Oh, I've made this one even harder for myself. I should have put this on first in the bottom. Oh, come on now. That one was on and then it came off. There we go. I think we'll call that one. So, a little cable tie here to keep that off the crap, hot crap, and then we'll get to setting this up. So here is what we're left with once we have $50 vacuum lines. Intake, boost, which one? Vacuum, and this hard line here. is turbo. So the instructions call for initial startup to set the rise rate fully clockwise. Like so, and boost fully anti-clockwise, which I hope it doesn't come out. I'm going to assume fully anti-clockwise is at the top. Okay, full disclosure, I'm not sure if that boost screw is all the way out. Can it come out further? I don't know. I'm kind of scared to loosen it all the way in case a spring-loaded piece pops out and we break it. It is 115 quid after all. So what we're going to do is move to the next step, which is starting the engine. So we're going to be looking for the engine's actuator, which is here. We're going to be looking for this rod to pull back onto its stopper position here. Once it does that, we're going to turn back the rise rate until it starts to just come off of that stopper. Then we're going to adjust clockwise again, 1/4 of a turn, and that is a good place to start for the rise rate apparently. Oh, it's back. Now let's adjust the rise rate. There we go. So that's it. Just home there. Just home. So clockwise 1/4 of a turn. And that's the best place to start. So what we'll do is we'll let this warm up, and then we'll start the trial and error test runs, adjusting as we go. So I should add here quickly that before we start, I'm actually setting this up with a little diesel tuning box that's plugged into the ECU. You don't need to do this, you can just use this to replace your factory solenoids, if this works, which we've still yet to see, but I'm going to use this here. I've got this plugged in at the moment, which basically just works with the fuel pressure, I think. You can see there on the sticker where I got it from, it's Tune It Performance Tuning in the UK. Just a little plug-in box that you wire into your ECU loom. First run, here we go. It is turned all the way down, so, well, we think it's turned all the way down. We're not sure about that boost screw, are we? But let's see what happens. If I can get out past my Trans Am. Building boost already. Well, we're back to having low boost, which we didn't have before. I'm gonna have all my stuff rattling about here. Oh god. Can't corner too hard, everything's gonna fall. Maybe, I think we need the rise rate to be sooner. I think we need it to change into the lower boost setting a bit quicker. I'll do a bit more messing around and then we'll make a decision on what to do with that. Have a look at the instructions, because playing with both the boost and the rise, they both have a bit of an effect on each other. Let's have a look at the instructions again. Okay, so I think I've got it sussed. Actually, the boost screw did go anti-clockwise a bit more. I've taken out another maybe full turn there, which has brought the boost pressure down, because I could hear, because this is straight piped, I could hear that extra boost pressure passing back through, you know, the veins or something. I've done a wee experiment on this before where I ran 12 volts straight to the old factory solenoid to check that it was working, and I tried running it like that and it sounded like that. It sounded like it was getting too much boost pressure. So I've turned that down and it now seems to be at a more workable level for playing with the rise rate and the boost pressure. So the instructions tell you to try and set the peak boost pressure first, and then you can play about with the rise rate a bit more if you want. So let's just see where we're at now once this traffic passes. Peaking at about 0.9 bar maybe now. It's a strange thing because then I can get it up to 1 bar. Oil noise is back though. Third gear pull. Still think the rise rate might be a little off because it'll keep building more boost pressure in the higher RPMs, which is probably because, you know, the exhaust gas is passing through the turbo, but the actuator's still in the kind of high boost position, the all the way forward position. So how do we fix that? I think we turn the rise rate anti-clockwise to do that, so let's give that a go. Well, I should have kept better track of how much I turned that there. I think it was about half a turn, maybe a full turn. I basically took it back to where the arm is just off the top stopper again. So let's see if that does anything to us. My fear is that if we don't have the rise rate set properly, it can be giving it too much boost when you're just sitting in 5th gear in the motorway, because of course these don't have a 6th gear, so at 50 in the motorway they're sitting at nearly 3000 RPM. I don't want it to be firing too much boost in at that rev range. This engine's actually already got head gasket problems. The head gasket's weak, or the head's cracked or something, so we don't want it to fire too much exhaust gas through this and blow that head gasket anymore. I mean, I think it's a head gasket. It still does me driving to work. It doesn't overheat then, but it did overheat on me on a long drive to Ireland. So let's see what we're at now. Trying to do a U-turn in these things is impossible. This is a huge road. Oh, we just made it. Okay. I think I'm ready to take it a wee test on the motorway. I've missed my little oil noises. Doesn't do that when it's running low boost. I'm actually not used to driving this in low gears. I've been driving it for so long with low boost, you know, it's almost like driving a petrol engine. You've got to rev the balls out of it. I forgot we've got an average speed zone ahead. Well, this isn't great for testing, but it's behaving in the motorway. 50 miles an hour, it's sitting at about 0.4 bar, just, you know, cruising. that's the end of that test. I think if I spin round and go the other way, we'll be out of the camera zone again. Oh Jesus, there's a lot of traffic ahead. Christ. Oh, this was a mistake. Bloody hell. Here's a nice little view of our stack gauge lit up in the shade here. Lovely little gauge that for 80 quid. Highly recommend. So I just want to see what it does in 5th gear when we play with the throttle. I don't want it to be giving it too much boost at that rev range. Should be noted that with our little box here, we're still chucking out a lot of black smoke, which at least means that we're not running in lean, or at least running rich. Which I think, you know, from the amount of smoky diesels you see on the internet, I'm pretty sure for a diesel engine, running rich isn't too much of a problem. More of a problem for a petrol engine, especially, you know, forced induction. It's not too much of a problem for diesel engines, I believe, but running lean maybe, so at least we're not running lean. Right, 5th gear, 40. It's behaving about 0.7 bar. A little bit more. Yeah, that's good. So at least when I'm easing off the throttle, it's easing off of the rise rate as well, which is good, because when I wired 12 volts straight to the solenoid and it was wide open all the time, it would be giving it wild boost right now, which was causing it to overheat as well. So I think I might be quite happy with where we have it set right now. I really don't at this point want to fire crazy boost into this thing and see how long it will last. I kind of need it to last at this point. But you know, maybe if we get to the point where YouTube's paying me, we could just destroy this thing for fun. Seems to work for whistling diesel. Okay, I don't think I was recording there. I thought I was recording, turns out I wasn't. So I've turned the boost pressure up another half turn just to see what happens. And it feels alright. Definitely drives a lot better. Partially that could be due to the little diesel box that I've got. A lot of people say they're bad for the engines. People say I worked for the company that made these things are going to kill your engine, and unless that's what made my head gasket go, maybe they're right, but it definitely adds a lot more pep to this truck, especially in the lower rev range. This one doesn't have the animal box, you know, that ups the fuel and the boost pressure. This doesn't have that, so I guess we're kind of doing that with our manual controller and our little box down there. So anyway, let's head back to the motorway for another pass and see what she's like now that the boost screws turned in another half turn. Here we go, motorway round 2. Wait till we get out of this 40 bot. 40 bot? 40 bit. There's still a last average camera up here, so people are still sitting at 40. We don't really need to, we've not been clocked yet on the camera, but nah, fuck it, we're just going for it. Yeah, all good. Okay. This speedo's about 4 or 5 miles per hour out, by the way, so when I'm sitting at about 65, I'm actually doing 60. But it's all good. We're not overheating, we're not putting too much boost in. Oh, he's coming out. truck is working again. Let's try and get some exhaust noise in here. I know you guys love that stuff. Bumpy road. Most importantly, we've got our owl noises back. Let's get some low RPM owl noises. It's silly, but I like it. Well, there we have it, guys and girls. This actually works. I am very, very happy about this. I wasn't sure if it was going to work. I wasn't sure if I could make it work. But adding those two vacuum ports on the intake pipework and the intake pipework between the air filter and the turbo and the intercooler pipework, fitting those has worked. It's made this manual boost controller for VNT and VGT turbos work. It now controls the turbo. The ECU isn't doing anything, it's controlling fuel. We've got our little box down there giving it more fuel. So, and an important thing to note, no engine management lights, none at all. This thing was throwing me management lights previously. I mean, obviously I knew that the variable geometry turbo wasn't working. The reason that wasn't working may actually be my fault. When I was trying to, I thought I had a bad connection to the factory, solenoid. When I played with the wires around the plug, it would come and go. You know, I could see the actuator opening and closing. When it idle, it should be in the fully forward position towards the front of the vehicle. So I tried to put some pins on the plug and then, make a wire right to the solenoid, and I think I shorted it. And I found somebody online saying, do not short that connection because it goes straight to the ECU. There's nothing between it. There's no relays, no fuses. It goes straight to the ECU. So I've probably knackered the ECU on this, to be honest, but that's an expense I didn't want to fork out, especially for, to buy a used ECU these days. This is a 2006 truck. This is one of the last years that they made this truck. I think they made it into early 07 as well, but they were making the B40 at this point, and this was an overlap year. So buying one used now, it's just, you've got to change the ECU and the mobiliser unit and the ignition barrel and key. So to do all that, to then find out that the ECU doesn't work, especially when people are charging about £300 for that whole kit, was something I didn't want to do. So this GFB Go Fast Bits 3009 VNT diesel boost controller, or V2 diesel VNT boost controller, was 120 quid, pretty much all in. That's including delivery, and it's done the job. ECU's happy, engine's happy, I'm happy because I've got boost in low revs now. You can imagine what it's like driving a diesel, but it was basically like driving at NA, no turbo at all. It was just so gutless, first and second gear, and had to rev it right up the rev range to get up to 70. And now this works, so super, super pleased that this has done the job and that I've managed to make it work. So maybe we're coming up in the world here. We're actually doing modifications that can help people. Because I mean, if you're in a similar position where you've got problems with your turbo actuator, it's overboosting. You know, overboosts on these are caused by the actuator just being in the wrong position at the wrong time. It's giving it high boost when it's meant to be up in the rev range on low boost, and that's 9 times out of 10 controlled by or due to fault of the turbo actuator solenoid, which you know you can go through 3 or 4 of them, replacing them with the Chinese ones on eBay. You can still get them from Mitsubishi, but you've got to know, you know, they don't come on the little bank with the 2 for the throttle actuator. It just comes on its own. I think it's called like an emissions control valve on their parts system if you're looking for one. But I mean, I would just do this, some vacuum hose and that, you know, 120 quid for the controller, and you know, you can customize it, you can play with it a little bit. You can have the rise rate coming in at a different time. I think I've got lucky just where I've set this up right now. It didn't need much adjustment from the factory starting point, you know, which go fast bits tell you to start at, which was rise rate fully clockwise and boost fully anti-clockwise, and then adjust a little bit from there. It's not far off those starting points where I have this now, but honestly I'm just happy this runs again properly. And it means I can have fun with it again and enjoy driving it again. So I think I've covered everything here, so thanks for watching guys again. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. Close to 500 subscribers now, which blows my mind that anyone wants to sit and listen to me ramble on about cars, but please help me get to 1,000. 1,000 you can monetize on eBay. On eBay? We're not on eBay. On YouTube, you can monetize at 1,000, so that'd be great if, you know, it paid for some of these parts. Because you know what it's like, guys. We all waste money we don't have on cars and parts. It's an endless, vicious cycle. It would just be cool if YouTube helped fund that a little bit. So, not asking for money off you guys, but if you just press subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. So, thanks. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Take it easy.